Hey everyone, welcome to another Svelte Radio Podcast. This week we don't have a guest, but as usual, the three of us are here. So I'm Kevin. I run a site called Svelte School, where you can find tutorials and training material to learn Svelte. And I'm joined by my two other co-hosts, Shawn and Anthony. Do you want to go ahead and present yourselves?
Hey everyone, this is Shawn. I guess I had to do some self-intro. I work at AWS as a senior developer advocate and happy to be here.
I'm Anthony, and I am the CTO of Beyonk, which is a booking platform, booking software for experiences and travel. And I am also a Svelte maintainer.
Amazing. So, since last time, what have you guys been up to? Have you done anything interesting?
Well, I can go while you guys think of your updates. I can only think about the things that I've been doing recently, which is not doing Svelte. I have a so like kind of the biggest community React conference is called React Rally, and it's happening tomorrow. And I spent the last 2 weeks essentially, this is Svelte related. I created Svelte for React. Basically, the way that you do immutability and sort of assignment in Svelte, you could actually just port that over to React. So I did that. And then I made a whole talk around it with the whole idea of like why you should be experimenting with different formats and stuff like that. So preparing any talk is big, but I think this conference is special to me because that's how I first started. And that was my first ever conference in 2018. That's the first talk I ever gave. And I owe a lot to that conference, so I wanted to do a good job.
Yeah, so from my point, I've mostly been trying to stay cool. It's been 38 plus degrees here in the UK. It's very hard to work and very hard to think in that kind of heat, and especially we don't have aircon in our houses and stuff like that. So it's just a matter of, I don't even know. There's no way to stay cool. But meanwhile, where I've been able to, I've been obviously working hard on my startup, which is Beyonk. And then we've been doing a fair bit of Svelte core work. So mostly around linting and making contribution a bit easier, getting some PRs closed, that sort of thing. So yeah, all kind of very software related in the crazy heat.
Okay, so I've been working these last few weeks on the new Svelte Society Day website, as well as the upcoming conference that we're going to talk about in a bit. Spoiler. Then today we are also going to talk about some other stuff. There's a new static site generator. Routify just released their 2.0 release, and a couple of other random things. Let's get started. So first off, Svelte Society Day France. I heard they had like a lot of proposals.
Yeah, they did better than you.
Yeah.
They've got some proposals so far. I'm not sure when this is going to release, but they're aiming to close the call for proposals on 16th of August. But they have a good selection. It's always better to have more, I think. And I think the actual event is happening at the end of September. So if I was any good at this job, I would have their URL in front of me. It's actually france.sveltesociety.dev. So basically, if you speak French and you do Svelte, you should come to this meetup or conference or whatever it is on the 27th of September, and it will be a good time.
I think it's worth noting that we're talking about it in Discord, and they were saying that they're sort of majority French talks, but not exclusively. So they might have some English language talks as well.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm going to check it out.
Cool.
Even if I don't speak French.
yeah, exactly. So there might be opportunity there if you don't speak French to also still join in and participate and sort of learn some stuff.
Yeah. All right. So the big one, Svelte Summit 2020. This is the new conference.
Ooh,
yeah. So
with the shiny site.
Exactly. So by the time you listen to this, the website's going to be live, and you're going to find it on three different URLs, but mainly I would probably go to sveltesummit.com. So this is pretty much the new Svelte Society Day, but with a shinier name, cooler website, and more speakers, hopefully. We'll see. We'll be opening the call for proposals as soon as this podcast goes out. So
And what sort of talks are we looking for this conference?
That's a good question. If you're interested in doing a talk, I would submit it regardless of the subject, pretty much, as long as it's Svelte related, of course.
And then we can come to Discord and chat about the proposals in the society chat.
Exactly.
And what sort of length are we talking about talk-wise here? Are we doing sort of lightning talks, or we're doing longer talks, or?
So I'm thinking we should have both lightning talks and regular talks. So a lightning talk would probably be something like 10 minutes ish, but longer ones 30 maybe. It's not a hard limit on like how long or short the episodes can be, or sorry, cool. The talks.
So basically, it's good because it's kind of like an opportunity for somebody who hasn't talked before, maybe to have their first talk.
Yeah,
and it's pre-recorded again, I'm guessing. So
I
mean, it theoretically makes it a bit easier, but also maybe doesn't always make it a bit easier.
Yeah, I noticed that last time, but this time we're gonna do it a bit differently.
Sure,
we'll do a YouTube premiere kind of thing.
Nice, yeah.
So one thing we haven't mentioned is the date. So it's on the 17th of October, I think. Or is it the 18th? Ooh.
This is critical information, right?
Yes. I need to check this out. It's the 18th.
18th.
Good thing I double checked.
Cool. I will indeed be proposing a talk. I just have to figure out exactly what, because there's lots of different things.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if I should do that, or maybe I should just take it easy for this.
No, you should give it a talk.
We'll see. We definitely want new voices and new faces, especially people of color and women, and that's something that I'm very keen on as well. So to have more representative voices. Yep.
Yes, for sure. All right. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in a bit. This is the first sponsor of the show, Mono Company. So Mono is a digital product studio that works remotely. And within the Svelte community, you might have known Wolfer. He coincidentally made the Svelte Summit website design, and he's worked on the Routify website as well as the actual Svelte Society website. And he wanted to sponsor this episode with a simple message. As a design team, they're open for new clients, and they have extensive experience designing web applications with full-on custom design systems. So Mono is typically responsible for the UI and UX in a project, and they work alongside developer teams. They love designing web apps, and they want to support Svelte because it's an awesome framework. So check out their website. It's mono.company. That's mono.company.
That's a pretty nice URL. And yeah, I mean, his designs just look amazing, and he just does it so quickly. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is amazing. Like, I don't understand how he can do it so quickly.
Yeah, I think designers who can develop or developers who can design they can do so much with so little resources. It's really cool to watch. So thank you, Mono, for being our first sponsors.
We merged one of Wolfer's contributions into the site yesterday, and it's great because it's fixed that long-standing issue on the REPL on iPhone where you have to scroll down to get the input-output toggle up.
Oh.
And it's fixed that. It's beautiful. I can now code on my iPhone, which is great.
Yeah, that always bugged me a bit, having to like scroll up a bit. Yeah.
Well, it's fixed. It's done.
That leads into our next topic. So the last Svelte maintainers meeting.
Yeah. So you may have noticed in the last couple of weeks, 3 weeks or so, the maintenance status of Svelte and Sapper has increased dramatically. And obviously, like it's a kind of culmination of the meetings we've had so far, and also the addition of Ben McCann. So I'm going to give Ben McCann a shout out. He's a machine. I don't know how he has time to do all the stuff he does. But if you can think of something, there's a PR for it already. He's opened it and it's ready to merge. Right? It's crazy. And he's also been working through and triaging and checking and testing all the existing PRs. So really good addition to the maintenance team there. And I think everyone's kind of been sort of inspired by that. And so obviously you see the traction, you see things going in, and it kind of eases the block a bit more. So great stuff. He's yet to join us in a maintainers meeting. The last one was where we discussed adding him. So what came out of the last maintainers meeting was a focus on Sapper. Obviously, Sapper was sort of sidelined for a long time, just whilst we got Svelte up to a place where we want it to be. The goal, sort of the future of Sapper is, there's a lot of talk about modularizing it, maybe not even having a thing called Sapper, but turning it into a series of roll-up plugins that make up Sapper. So like a routing plugin, a plugin for the kind of internals, bundling, the splitting. So this is all underway. There's a Discord user called Adam B, or AJ Boo on GitHub as well. He's actually kind of started this prior to us even discussing this. So I don't know how well his stuff aligns with kind of the main vision. I'm supposed to be responsible for writing the RFC on how to split this, but I've found that it takes a lot of time to write an RFC. So it's kind of been delayed. Meanwhile, he's doing a lot of things that I kind of wanted to do anyway, so which is great. So yeah, that's the plan for Sapper, to modularize it and do a lot of other cool stuff, and maybe make it kind of have differential route bundling, so you can have fully static routes, dynamic routes, SBA routes, SSG routes, you name it. So yeah, that's going to be a series of stuff that's going to be appearing as RFCs in the hopefully near future. Meanwhile, we're just cleaning up everything else around Sapper. Probably half the PRs that were there are now closed, merged in and closed, which is great.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's looking really nice. pretty rosy. And then we'll have to focus on Svelte again, because now Svelte's becoming the one that gets sidelined.
It's usually how it goes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then the next maintenance meeting I think should be in 1 or 2 weeks away. And yeah, and I can't tell you exactly what the topics are for that, but we do have quite a lengthy list of topics. So yeah, I'll bring back reports.
Lots to talk about, so little time.
Well, so little time to talk about it, and even less time to do it. So again, hugely reliant upon the contributions from the community.
Yeah,
nice clean PRs coming in, looking pretty good. So
that's awesome.
It's going good.
All right. Shawn, do you have anything to add to the...
No, I think to the extent that we have some sort of roadmap, I think it'd be good to publish it, make the Svelte blog a little bit active. And in terms of, I hate to say it, marketing, having some sort of conscious effort to have minor versions and actually tell people like, okay, there's a new minor version. These are the things that we added, stuff like that. Like, is there a change log? I don't even know if there's a change log.
So there's a change log. Conduitry maintains the change log.
Yeah, we can publicize that a bit more.
Yeah, we probably should publish the change log. We probably should tweet about it. I might even see if we can clone the Society auto tweeting thing from GitHub. Maybe we can make it part of that or something. However, what I will say about roadmaps is that they can be a double-edged sword. So whilst it's great that people can see and have visibility over what the plans are and where they're going, they also become a kind of tie and a commitment. And with the amount of stuff that people are doing and working on, there's less time to actually make these changes, especially when they're quite large. So I think there's also a fear of having a roadmap that maybe is stale, or where things have just sat forever and never moved. So it's definitely a consideration, but there are reasons that there isn't one in any sort of formal sense as of yet.
Cool. So Routify 2.0. I don't know how much you know about this release, but apparently it's not as big of a deal as it sounds. It's just that some of the changes are breaking. So
okay,
there are some small additions, but nothing major. I think Jake is working on this new framework, Roxi.
Roxi,
yeah, ROXI. I suspect we'll hear about that in a couple of weeks, maybe.
I mean, Roxi is, from what I understand, it's like modular Routify, right?
I'm not entirely sure exactly what it is. I've been a bit out of the loop these last few weeks, but I guess we'll hear about it. That also made me think about Roxi. Is that like, what do you call it when you switch around the letters? Anagram? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, anagram.
Yeah, is Roxi an anagram for Rixo?
Oh, yeah. Maybe.
I don't know. I'll have to investigate.
Well, for those who are less well-versed, what is Rixo?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Rixo is a person. He maintains the Svelte HMR kind of thing. And he made a project called Svench as well. It's like the storybook equivalent in Svelte land.
Yeah, Rixo is HMR guy is what I call him. He's a guy who constantly claims to be some sort of junior, and he's just kind of looking at other HMR implementations and copying them. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's not junior. I mean, this is, what he's done is mind blowing with HMR. It's really good, and I'm using HMR in a lot of projects now. In fact, that's one of the reasons I'm using Routify, because I'm using Svelte, which uses the HMR plugin underneath, and it uses Routify. And it works really well. It works really nicely. It's a very impressive piece of work.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying out Svelte as well. And in order to... So Svelte is built on top of Evan Yu's Vite. Vite, whatever. And in order to write Svelte, he had to figure out how to write a Vite plugin, which is not documented. So then you just have to dive through the code base of Vite and figure it out. And he did. And it's pretty impressive. And I don't know how to do that. So kudos to him.
Yeah. Dominic G is also another one of those just doing stuff that didn't seem possible.
Yep. All right. So next topic is a new static site generator, Elder.js. So you guys haven't used it much. I tried it a bit. It was just released. So the name is quite odd, Elder.js. It's because of the company that released it is called Elder Guide, which is I don't even know what you want to call it, like elderly home review kind of site.
It's like a care home review site, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So the documentation is on that site, which is funny. So you can see, like, you can, like, the top menu shows you, like, oh, check out the nursing homes, etc.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny. Anyway, so what are the features of Elder.js? So Elder.js is kind of like, it boasts like insanely fast build times. So I think he mentioned something like building 17,000 pages in like 8 minutes, which is mind-blowingly fast. He also seems like one of those guys that just does the impossible, sort of. The idea is basically that you set up your data fetching mechanisms beforehand. You can hook into the build process at different times, and you can manipulate the outputted HTML and so on. So one of the major features that I kind of like is the partial hydration. So he's using a preprocessor to look at the components and see, and if there's a certain attribute on there, it makes it interactive, and otherwise it just keeps it statically generated, which is kind of nice. So you can have, for example, a form that's interactive, but the rest of the site is just static. Makes it so it doesn't ship double the code.
It's pretty impressive. Yeah, I'm just looking at docs.
Yeah, the docs are really good. Like, I think he spent like several days writing these docs.
I mean, it's a good way. It's a good way to kind of, write docs for yourself as well, isn't it? To remind you when you come back to it after a while. So
yeah,
docs
for sure.
can be almost a freebie.
Yeah. So I tried writing a plugin for this static site generator, and it's just like a regular RSS feed data fetching plugin. And it was really easy, like super, super easy. So I would probably like compare it a bit more to Gatsby than Sapper, but it's not exactly the same. It doesn't necessarily use GraphQL, for example. But,
yeah, it doesn't. My comments on this thing, I mean, anytime someone else writes a static site generator, that means I don't have to do it. That's really great. And this is a very significant effort that he did not have to open source, but he took the extra time to share it, and it's pretty cool. And yeah, I'm seriously considering rewriting my own site using this, because it addresses the core criticism that people who criticize JavaScript frameworks have, which is when you do the hydration on your site, you're basically sending it on the HTML, then you're sending it on the data, and then you're sending it on the JavaScript, and then you're re-rendering all of that in JavaScript. So that seems silly for something with a site that has mostly static content. I think that's true even for Svelte, but it's also true for React. And so the solution is actually something that Jason Miller from Google has been calling the islands architecture. So that's on his site at jasonformat.com/islands-architecture. And it's this idea that, okay, you have a site, it's got a header, it's got a sidebar, it's got a middle content page, it's got a footer. And guess what? Only parts of the site needs to be interactive. The rest is just static content. And so the way that we did it before JavaScript frameworks was essentially like, all right, we'll throw in some jQuery and then we'll do some interactive elements and event listeners to those parts of the site. But then when we transition to writing sites using frameworks, we kind of lose that because we try to rehydrate everything so we have consistent state. So I think Elder helps to return us to that mode because Svelte is such a nice authoring format for co-located like styles and templates, and then maybe JavaScript, right? So I think Elder just like kind of assumes that by default we'll only output HTML and styles, and it will be kind of scopes styles to that HTML component.
Yeah.
And then if you want JavaScript, you have to opt in by adding this attribute, like you said, which is the hydrate-client. And then that's an indication to Elder.js that, okay, everything under this part, you can hydrate using JavaScript. But it makes for very, very, very small components, and they can all be sort of loaded independently. And I think that's the main innovation here that I don't think exists in other frameworks. Like I think this is a world first, and this is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's I like it a lot. So the reason I built the RSS plugin was to make the new website for this podcast, actually. So I'm going to try my hand at building something cool in Elder.js to make the website a bit more active and better.
Sounds good. I haven't got a use for a static site generator at the moment, but it's definitely something that I want to do because I just have this dream of having a super high performance site written in Svelte. That's it's like the dream. I mean, the sites I have now are fast, but they're obviously dependent upon APIs and that sort of thing. So, yeah, maybe one day. Hey,
so many things to try out and test. Yeah.
I think everyone should have a personal blog that they update. I think everyone should write more, and site generators are just a good application of that. So someday, I know you're a busy guy.
Yeah, Svelte in production.
So people, we try to collect cases of people using Svelte in production, partially to like encourage others to like give them some social proof that like other people are actually using this and it's production ready. Like the only way, this question of like, is Svelte production ready? I mean, it's kind of an arbitrary standard. And the only way to really answer that is to show that people are using it in production and then gradually tip people over the edge. So it's the pinned tweet on the Svelte Society Twitter, twitter.com/Svelte Society. And I just have a bunch of people that might be notable, that are recognizable household names, and then people kind of report their apps as well. This is kind of like a nice narrative complement to the who's using Svelte part of the Svelte README. It's on a README, right? Or is it the site?
It's on the site on that, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's on the site. Okay. Yeah, because like the who's using Svelte page is just a bunch of logos. But I think it's good to have like stories of like, what they wear. Like, is it like an internal app, or is it like customer facing? So like we talked about in previous episodes, like Disney and Square Enix and Fate and Cloud and Elder as well. Google used it recently for an arts and like a crossword experiment. So it's not the main Google, but it's kind of like the Google Labs or whatever they call it. I think the big news that happened, I think this week, actually yesterday, was that Alaska Airlines self-reported that they're using Svelte for a pretty good use case. So Alaska Airlines, it's a pretty major airline in the US. I fly it whenever I'm on the West Coast. And I was like, okay, wow, that's interesting. Where do you use it? And this is what they said. They said, we're using it in a new microsite we built to help guests when their flight is disrupted. The guest is often at the airport when they get the notification, so they have slow connection speeds. So we chose Svelte to keep our JS payload low.
I think it's worth a couple of points here. One is, you mentioned about the logos on the homepage. So that's actually come up in both maintainers meetings. It's something we want to optimize, and we haven't got a really good idea of how to do it. There's a notion of maybe having some sort of headline acts, kind of like big sites that use it, and then everyone else kind of below, or maybe deferred to another page or something like that. Maybe randomizing the logos because there's so many of them. That's something that we'd gratefully receive as a PR, or at least a discussion on how we could better do that, and some ideas thrown about maybe. So if there's someone looking for a first contribution, that's a very good place to start. And the other thing is about, using something in production and something being production ready. A question we get a lot is, when will Sapper reach version 1.0? When's Svelte version 4 coming out? The problem with this for me, and I say it to them every time, is that a version number doesn't really mean anything in terms of whether something is or isn't production ready. I've been using Svelte since anyone even heard of it, apart from Rich and a few others, right? And I've pushed it to production at that point before it's even got any traction at all. I'm not a person who follows version numbers very carefully. But what I will say is that try and cast aside the notion of a version number or a stable or a major or anything like that. Decide what you want to do with Framework X. Write lots of tests, build prototypes, build spikes, test it out, assess it against other frameworks, other things you've got, and just kind of assert that it can fulfill in a reasonable way all the things that you want to do. And that's the only real way that you can determine whether something's production ready or not. If you're relying on an arbitrary version number to say if something's production ready or not, you're in for a big shock. So I really disagree with the kind of tie between version numbers and readiness or appropriateness or fitness for purpose,
Wasn't it Node that had like the longest like 0 point something release thing up until like just a few years ago?
There's also it suddenly sort of went from 0.12 or something to 1, but there's also a movement that's called, I can't remember what it's called, but it's something like Never Reach version 1.0, and it's a group of people where, rightly or wrongly, I think Semver is great, so I'm not sure I agree with it in concept, but it's a group of a movement of people who want to never ever make their projects reach version 1.0, and they just encourage bumping the minor every time. And I think like it's probably a bit tongue in cheek, but the underlying message is exactly what I've said, is about don't fixate on version numbers because they're meaningless. They mean different things to every person. They're meaningless as a thing,
Yeah.
I was just also going to mention part of the reason I try to track people using Svelte in production is because that is step one to then having jobs for people who want to use Svelte, right? So that is kind of the funnel that goes towards that. There used to be an account called Svelte Jobs on Twitter. That seems to be inactive now. I actually don't even know who operates it. But we shouted out some major players recently, like Apple, did some contracting work in Svelte.
There's quite a few huge names, but it's just not everyone announces it, I guess.
Yeah, well, we're not going to know everything, but I think just to create a community, I think it's kind of like a weird cycle. Like you have to pay people to put Svelte, to care about Svelte, to put Svelte in production. That feeds into people actually relying on this thing and contributing back to the community, and that just kind of builds the virtuous cycle.
Yeah, it's chicken and egg.
It is. So I just want to shout out that there is an opportunity this week from Open Zeppelin, who are looking for a security platform engineer. That's kind of like a full stack opportunity. So they do blockchain and Svelte. So that's a very interesting combination,
Wow.
which very, very cutting edge. Presumably you want to get very small JS bundles on your Ethereum blockchain. I don't know. I'm making this up, but like there's the reason we track these things in production is to build the ecosystem, and I think that's pretty important.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna take a short break and listen to one of our sponsors.
Woohoo!
Have you ever wondered where you can learn more about Svelte, like how to actually use Svelte? You've probably heard about a site called Level Up Tutorials. It's run by a guy called Scott. He makes tutorials about all sorts of things web related, and recently he's been pretty interested in Svelte. So he's made a Svelte tutorial and a Sapper tutorial, as well as I think Sapper and Meteor sort of thing. I'm not too sure. I don't know much about Meteor, but it sounds cool. So if you want to learn more about Svelte and how to use it, go to svelteradio.com/levelup, and you'll end up at the website with some nice tutorials.
Yeah, I think it's like a monthly or annual subscription, and it's kind of all you can eat in terms of his videos. And there's a lot of just front-endy, full-stacky content. You know, he's a full-stack developer. He's just records very high-quality videos. If you want to check a sample of his stuff out, definitely check his YouTube channel where he posts a lot of content for free. And I think it's a good way to level up, like I said.
Good way to level up. Yeah. All right. So Svelte on MDN.
Yeah, I put this in there. So MDN's recent troubles aside, you know, it's still a very important site. And I think something that people don't really know is that MDN doesn't just cover, like, it's not just documentation for web APIs from browser vendors. It actually is a community contributed kind of like wiki type of thing. And it covers anything, you know, and that includes frameworks as well. And OpenSAS, I don't know his real name. I don't know if he's like anonymous or something. But yeah, OpenSAS has been working really hard on the Svelte, you know, tutorial on MDN, and it's coming along. I think it's on part 6, 7th chapter out of 8, and he's even covering like the TypeScript support with Svelte. You know, that's like that feels old now, but it's still pretty new. And yeah, so I think he's looking for contributors, but then you can also just now check out chapters 1 through 7 of the MDN Svelte tutorial and contribute if you want.
And I think they're still in a kind of beta state, right? They're still ready for final review. So if anyone's got any feedback on them or input, then let OpenSAS know and they can be updated.
Yeah. OpenSAS is pretty active in like I think the Spanish Svelte community.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I know about it.
It's good that this is a thing, though. I didn't know like MDN had information or stuff on frameworks. It's the first time I heard about it.
Yeah. I have to say it's a surprise to me too. But it's good.
I think they recently adopted Vue for the MDN site itself, and that was a mildly controversial decision. But yeah, I mean, you know, they're friends with frameworks.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so that was our last on-topic topic, I guess. So let's move into picks and other stuff.
Cool. So we're going to picks?
Yeah, let's do that.
I got to think about picks.
He's got to find a pick really quickly.
Okay. I got one.
Go for it, Shawn.
Okay, so I've been getting into live streaming. I started a live stream with a friend of mine, Thor from Stripe. Yeah, his name is Thor, which is great. He even has like a hammer. And yeah. So it's like the AWS and Stripe live stream. It's every Monday at noon Eastern time in the US, which is midnight our time. But the main joy that we discovered is StreamYard. So I think it's StreamYard.com. And it's this browser-based version of OBS. If you've done any live streaming, OBS is pretty ubiquitous. But I think the problem with OBS is that it's kind of like hard to configure. So StreamYard is basically OBS with good defaults, and it helps you multicast to a bunch of different popular venues. So I can broadcast across Periscope, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitch. But the main ones are YouTube, Twitch, and what?
You can live stream on LinkedIn?
I
mean,
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think there's
LinkedIn stories.
Yeah, you can broadcast on LinkedIn. Yeah, LinkedIn page, LinkedIn event, LinkedIn profile. It's amazing how easy it is to hook up. It's amazing how easy it is to organize, like multiple people coming in, and you got to organize their location on the screen and do screen sharing as well. All of that usually burns up a lot of CPU on my machine, and it makes my machine very slow. But if you offload it to StreamYard, then it is not that slow. So it was a very pleasant experience. I think this company is like a 2-person shop in, I think, Norway or maybe Sweden. I don't remember, but it's some Nordic country. It's just like a nice tool. Yeah, it's free for basic usage, so check it out.
You can go and visit them, Kevin. You can go and visit them in
yes.
in Sweden.
When Corona dies down.
Yeah, right.
Unless it's in Stockholm, then I can go, I guess. So my pick is it's actually a board game. So last week I played a board game called Gloomhaven with a couple of friends. It's sort of like a Dungeons and Dragons style game. Super fun if you're into co-op board games. Yeah, that's about it. Check it out.
Gloomhaven. Nice. I like good board games, so I'm going to have a look at that. Wow, it's expensive. Whoa.
Yeah, but like the box weighs like 10 kilograms. It has so much stuff in it.
Lead must be expensive by that measure. Cool. Okay, so my pick is going to be actually games as well, but more online. So I don't actually play very many online games. In fact, I don't play any games at all. But I do play with friends, especially during lockdown, the Jackbox suite of games. So if you haven't heard of the Jackbox suite of games, it's essentially a bunch of kind of multiplayer games. One of the most famous ones being Drawful, which is a lot like Pictionary. You all draw something on your phone, so you stream it via a broadcast, kind of like via Google Meets or whatever, and then you draw on your phone the picture, and then everyone has to guess what that is a picture of, and then at the end you see everyone else's answers, and you pick the one that you think is the correct answer. And they're quite abstract topics, so it's not easy to see what the original one was, and the drawings are very bad because they're on your phone. So it makes it a lot of fun. We stream with these games almost every week, if not twice a week. Absolutely loads of fun. And my parents can play them. They're not. You don't need to sort of be into gaming or anything to do it. I mean, they've got 6 party packs now, so there's 6 sets of 6 to 8 games. There's quite a lot to choose from. All sorts of trivia and quiz like that, things like that too. Essentially, just it requires one person to have the games, stream their screen over a video sharing service, and then you can use YouTube or Twitch or whatever. And everyone wants to join in just uses their phone. They go to the Jackbox TV website and they type in the room code, and then they're a member of the game. You can actually go on Twitch and you can search for Jackbox, and you'll see a bunch of people playing these games all the time. If you want to kind of get a little preview before you dive in and actually buy them. But they're really good. Really recommend it for catching up with friends whilst you're stuck in your house.
All right. So I guess that's it. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be back in another couple of weeks, I suppose. And take care. Bye.
Cool. Thanks a lot. Bye.